I wanted to sort of say a few things about potentially about energy efficiency in the built environment, about housing and other things. To me, I'm very passionate in making sure that buildings are as efficient as possible. Not only will that reduce the carbon emissions, which I think is really, really, really important, but also as a people's health. A lot of studies now to show that bad housing is causing huge amounts of problems with the NHS and all them. So as a society, if we can improve people's homes, we'll improve carbon and we'll also help improve people's lives and communities and so forth. There's been some research that if you spend all the money improving people's homes, then that will be paid back in communities, let alone the energy bills. But in terms of renewable energy, the first renewable really is efficiency. Until you can reduce those demands down. You look at the total carbon emissions around in the UK, I think it's 50% is in buildings. Of that, a majority of that is housing. And the majority of the housing which we get to 2050, where we need to be zero carbon, have already been built. We have to do something about the existing buildings. So I would encourage everyone to look at what they do. And I'd also, the other message I'd like to put forward on this is to make sure that when you are doing a measure, do it well. Because you can have one opportunity to do these things. You won't want to put a small amount of insulation on and then redo it later. Do that one well. Look at the thermal bridging, the airtightness, all sorts of other technical things. You can talk to me about technical things if you want to, but I'm not going to go into that today because I think it'll bore you. But we can do huge things to make buildings better. And it's important that you do things well at each element. And maybe look at a whole house plan. It's encouraging to see the community works, look at whole house plans. So if you can't afford to do everything in one go, just do piecemeal as you go through, but look at your moisture and ventilation as you go through. Was there any other topics you wanted to particularly talk about? I think home energy was the last one, really, wasn't it, rather than this one? But
I think the only question I want to ask you, is how do you think we're going to reduce the emission, emanating from the buildings? How do we improve, our building?
Okay, there's a number of principles, basically. Insulation. So if just probably going to save about 30%. Draft proofing, which is something that's not often thought about. So making your house airtight. Probably another 30%. Improving the shape of building. If you've got if you've got a front door that is recessed in, moving that front door out could make 5-10% difference. It sounds small. It's quite simple, but having a less surface area losing heat can make a big difference. Good windows, so you're not losing heat, you're going to the total gains, and you're not overheating. Overheating again is a really big issue. I think last week, I saw a survey that was over 50% of UK houses were over 26 degrees, which is uncomfortable. And that was September. So we do need to be doing stuff about that as well. Thermal bridging. This is the junction to how things are constructed, make sure that's done well. There's some really good encouragement happening actually. Scotland have been fantastic as a government. They've now said that all new housing is to be to the equivalent of the Passive House Standard. They don't call it the Passive House Standard, but they put all the criteria in there that is the Passive House Standard, which will reduce new build housing by about, it's going down from about 110 kilowatts down to 15 for every house. So that's quite a big step forward. And what's really encouraging now is some of the big contractors are going along to find out about this stuff, and they'll because they have to in Scotland, but I can see that running out over the country. So I think there is hope.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I now invite Mr. Dotun. It's about circular economy.
So in looking at the local economy, we could look at linear or circular economy. If we want to go linear, we could just keep creating new things all the time. And if we're thinking about the subject of sustainability, that's not going to help us. So thinking circular is how you're able to reuse, recycle. And when I was speaking earlier, I referenced some ideas. So before I go into that, I removed my jacket partly because I was warm, but also to talk about my shirt. Not to show off, but my shirt on the cuffs and the lapel is from an old headgear of my wife. So I'm showing and talking about practical reusability. So these are simple things we can do. So, but I thought it's contextual, so I wore it today. And the fact that she used to have this headgear and I gave it to someone going to Nigeria to say, okay, this lady could make something, we explain. I mean, this is simple, but there are bigger ways. I mentioned the concept of having a car subscription club. So we have a few car companies in Milton Keynes, yeah? And what if the car company supports the local economy by having a situation where it's also a family-oriented city, right? So having a car subscription service where you don't need to drive your car, you don't go around polluting the environment, you can potentially just subscribe to use the car, like the scooters, and say, I need to use a car for 4 hours a week or 2 hours a week, and you subscribe to use it that way. You have an app or a portal where you can see, just like the scooters, where they are, you pick it off, you drop it off, and that's it. That's a simple idea. It's about reusing, recycling, and you can also have, toy swap schemes where I don't know if parents will buy into that, but with the good education, you don't need to buy new ones because you need to put batteries into them, to the remote controls and whatnot. You can have the tool, library where you could swap tools and hire them as opposed to owning them because you need to plug them in to charge them. So you can reuse and recycle. And also the mayoress talked about some local shops where you can buy the charity shops. And in the past, with my Nigerian heritage, when I hear about charity shops, I think, oh, those are dead stuff where it's very old. But you go in there, you see very high quality things in terms of tools, in terms of books, in terms of different things. So it's not just, clothes or shoes. There are other things. So, and businesses in Milton Keynes can, as a practicality, say, when you finish using the flower pots you've used, instead of just keeping them, you could give them to charity shops where they can kind of reuse, upcycle them and sell on. And, we don't need to manufacture new things. So I'm talking about products and ideas because I'm a product innovation person. So I'm not as clever as an architect. So I'm just giving practical ideas of things we could use. And I just think that if we all do a little bit, I also mentioned the green idea of the month. In every business, you're always going to have that bright spark, someone really filled with ideas. Encourage people to come up with an idea about how to be more green. Because most of the time, people who start businesses have an idea of how they want the business to run, but they do have junior people or interns or new entrants into the business who have very good ideas. If you promote the green idea of the month, you'll be surprised what ideas will come true. So I think these are a few ideas what the local Milton Keynes local businesses can kind of plug into and see how this can work, because the businesses have a lot of people working within them, and also as individuals, this is an idea, reuse your things. You can turn your, the ladies maybe turn their heart into fans for the summer, or, you can make shoes out of old pairs of jeans and chinos. But these are simple ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adeku. And I want to seek for permission, to tell my wife to stop throwing away her old, clothes, so that I can be, taking part of it to recycle. Meanwhile, I think the only question I have for you is, how do you think we can still encourage people to use, considering the fact that people look at using something that somebody has already used as, something demeaning, you know?
That's an interesting question. I think I kind of pointed to that. It's a cultural thing, and I referenced my Nigerian heritage because, you know, we have this thing, we want to buy Tiaroba, which is, you know, it has to be
Brand new one, yeah.
So for those who are not of Nigerian heritage, Tiaroba means when you buy a car, you remove the plastic cover. So we have this Tiaroba kind of aspirations to
Mentality.
a mentality that it has to be brand new. Well, evangelizing new ideas is about segmenting your market and knowing how you communicate appropriately to the different market segments. And if I was selling the idea of reducing recycling, if I go to a Nigerian, I will not talk about clothing. I will start with something else. And even if I was talking about clothing, I could use my own example because it's someone in the family. But you could talk about things like, you know, CDs or flower pots or other things that are not, you know, very personal or intimate. But also, there are other things we can do. It could be, instead of driving all the way, I remember when I used to live in London and there was something on BBC London about, you know, walk more. You have the health benefit and the environment benefit as well. So instead of driving all the way, why don't we drive to a certain place and walk? You know, these are simple things. It's about segmenting the message and making sure that the segment of the local community we communicate with, we need to understand how they think. And it all starts with research. You need to sort of have a focus group where members of the different communities groups are represented. And when the local council is doing the messaging, they understand how to communicate. Milton Keynes I was talking to the mirrors outside now, and she said Milton Keynes is now about 38% diverse. So there is a huge opportunity to bring different, you know, groups of people to give an idea of how we could be more green. Because if you just bring a subset of the community, the other will be thinking, what are you talking about? I'm not interested. But if you bring ideas that come from the representatives of every community in Milton Keynes, the messaging will resonate with everyone. I think
that's an inclusive decision.
Thank you.
Bringing everybody together on the table to, you know, design and decide on what to do and the direction to focus on.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We really enjoyed your speech, and we still want you to talk. We cannot get tired of hearing from you, tapping from your wealth of knowledge and experience. Mr. Michael, talk to us about, you know,
Circular
economy.
Right, thank you for that introduction. I'm sure if we'd been able to find someone else, we would have done. But in our movement, we have only a limited number of people who are free. So, circular economy, you've paved the way beautifully in what you've said, Adotan. You've actually explained the point that if we change our attitude to buying, having, throwing away, we're going to get somewhere better. Sharing, as you've described in car clubs, is wonderful. We've got forces against us. You were hinting at the forces against us when you answered that question. We are being persuaded all the time to want stuff, to buy stuff, and then throw it away because we can get the next better model, the next better car, the next better smartphone, whatever it is. So there is a whole economy that is against us. The good news comes from the diversity you mentioned, and from young people who are saying, wait a minute, we're not sure we want to play this game, which is great. Now, that leads to the question, how do we get out of the game? And I'm not quite sure how to find a way into this. Let's start in Milton Keynes. There's a number of excellent eating places. One of them is a cafe run by the Camp Hill community.
And you can get food there in the Camp Hill community, which is a working community with disadvantaged people. And they have excellent solar panels on the top, by the way, which leads to our first event. When you eat at their restaurants and you eat vegetables and salad, they are grown in their gardens. Grown in their gardens from compost, which comes from the households and from the cafe. Now that to me is one of the very best examples of a circular economy you can get. There is no waste in that. There is no byproduct that needs to be burying in a landfill site. That compost is going to grow the tomatoes which are going to appear on your salad. So one of the things that I wanted to do was to say, well, can we not perhaps learn from nature more? Can we not work with nature rather than against nature in the way that we organize and do things? We're already beginning to come up with ideas of how to do that. There is a person in the audience who's already working on ways of working with fungi to break down some of the plastic in the things that we throw away. So that is wonderful. What we want to do is to see how working with nature can teach us about that. We try and promote a way of growing stuff that is in harmony with nature. And Transition Town MK has got a group within us of enthusiastic growers. And if you Google the words Planting Up MK or go on our website, you will find out about that group and their activities. I wanted to mention that because we can't learn from nature until we get our fingers a little bit dirty, I think. Let's grow some more of the stuff we eat. Let's not buy it in plastic bags. Let's have it on our windowsills. That is going to be my plea. Now, how can we live circular economy in our daily lives? Well, we talked about voting, and to my simple answer to that is the best vote that you've got is your wallet. In other words, support the good guys, don't support the bad guys. Support the guys who are trying to do it as sustainably as possible. And I've obviously put some time and effort into looking things up and doing it in my own life. So I can give a few tips, obvious tips, for example, but I don't want to take up too much time. So I'll just mention two companies. And then if anybody wants any more tips, come and talk to me afterwards. Otherwise, I'm going to ruin the program. So tip number one is look at people who have managed to do away with packaging altogether. We did it for hundreds of years, well, certainly 100 years, with milk. We delivered milk to people's houses, and we either used their containers or we used a container that we recollected. Now, Milk and More, who deliver to Milton Keynes, have now got a whole range of products in returnable containers. And that includes cleaning products, other forms of juices, spring water, and there's a whole ethical discussion about spring water, but if you insist on spring water, why not get it in a bottle that is going to go back and get refilled with spring water? That is the most circular thing you can do with that. So that's one example. There's another example of a local organic vegetable delivery company that also delivers food. And they say every single item of packaging that they bring to your door, you leave outside the door for your next delivery, they take the whole lot back and reuse the maximum amount possible, nearly all of it. So all the stupid little packages of frozen water, They all go back to Abel and Cole. They'll be refrozen and I'll get them in a few weeks' time. Lovely idea. Now, there's loads more I could mention, but the problem is we've got a very full program. And I'm sure you've got other things you want to move on to.
You can go on. We still tap in probably.
Well, but what you did with the other speakers was you threw a question at them.
Yeah,
So first of
the
all,
question is coming to you.
right? Okay, I'm ready for it.
Well, all thanks to the social media. I believe social media give us more room, for reusing items.
Yes.
Taking a look at Facebook, you see a Facebook market, you see somebody advertising something he uses,
Yes.
selling it at a fraction of the amount he bought it. And I believe that is another form of circular economy. Instead of throwing it away, somebody who need it will go out there, pay for it, take it and use it.
Exactly.
So aside that, what else do you think, how else do you think we can encourage more, reusable, in our economy?
It's a very good point, and we're not good at getting it from the people who've finished with something and who don't want it anymore to the next person who wants it. There are obviously charity shops for clothes, but we don't have charity shops for certain other items that are bigger and take up more space. But one important point I think that I'd like to add to that, because what you're saying exactly the right thing. We should share more. We shouldn't use things once. We should say, who else might want this? Who else can use this? But in the end, you're going to have a pair of garden shears in your garden that will not cut anymore. They're blunt. You need people to maintain and repair things. And this is another important direction in keeping things more circular and less linear. Because instead of going out and buying a new pair of garden shears, I can actually take them to, there's only one decent hardware store left now in Stony Stratford who will resharpen my garden shears, which is lovely. But there's also a network of excellent organizations that I'd like to put in a plug for here, which are called repair cafes. So Milton Keynes has one flourishing one and a couple of embryonic ones. So the flourishing one is actually in Wolverton, which is the home of a lot of good things, including Wolverton Community Energy. So in Wolverton on the it's the second Saturday of the month, isn't it? Second Saturday of the month in the old bathhouse, there's a network of repairers with different skills. You can bring your old, I brought electric shavers where the batteries weren't working properly. I brought a lawnmower last week. They get taken apart. They find what's wrong with it and they help you mend it. So to anybody who's watching the video or in the audience now, please support Wolverton's Repair Cafe. Is there any other question?
They say you are tired. I mean, you are retired.
Yes.
But I still believe that you are not tired because because I can see the way you talk. You still have energy.
I do my best.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, so I've got support from my wife now. What more can I want?
Yeah. Thank you for giving in. We request for more support. Yeah, because we need, people like you, among us. And I think actually, to add to what you've said, people should avoid, buying things they want if they don't need them.
Yes.
Because I believe a lot of people are buying things that they don't need, but they just buy because they want. And I believe if we are doing this, we are not doing good to ourselves.
Yes, that's right.
We buy things and stock in our houses.
Yes.
that we don't need, but because we just wanted them, we want to see them. At the end of the day, we're not going to use them. Yeah. So I want to say thank you to our panelists. The next item in our agenda, I believe, is the troops, the ASEAN community dancers. So I don't know if they are around. Well, why is our DJ? Let him keep us entertained before the ASEAN community, the Asian community dancers.
We'd be happy to take questions from the audience if there are any.
All right.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shade, and I really like your presentation. Thank you very much for the time you've taken out here to talk to us. I was very impressed about what you said about growing our fruits, windowsills, vegetables. What I would like to ask is, would it be a good idea if we kind of have a campaign to have greenhouses in our gardens? So this way we can grow our foods. We have, a controlled area where we can grow vegetables. We all have gardens, maybe somewhere now that will fit into our garage. Rather than throwing rubbish from the garages, just have a small area. We can grow something very simple, and have it controlled, and then maybe somebody can have a sponsorship to have greenhouse. It's very expensive to have greenhouse anyway. So people that can afford that, and then they just put it off altogether. Perhaps it could be a project that you can take on board to say, look, we'll have people who are supporting growing your own foods, lettuce or whatever in your garden, and then we'll have a subsidized price for a small, greenhouse. That's my suggestion question. Thank you.
I think it's a lovely suggestion. I'm 100% behind it. It's a great idea. There may be a confidence issue that people don't feel they're confident to do it, and there may also be a practical issue because obviously not everybody has gardens. Some will be in apartments and things, but they still have windowsills, of course. I'm going to address the confidence issue and provide the best answer I can. The best answer I can is, one, look at sharing. If you feel, I don't know, I'm too old, I can't get out in the garden anymore, my legs don't work properly. Why not share your garden with somebody who hasn't got a garden and share the produce? There are schemes in London where this happens, and other cities have this. And it's a very good idea, and I hope perhaps Milton Keynes could consider it. The other thing is learn from people who are already growing. So our Planting Up group are maintaining a sort of demonstration permaculture plot at the Westbury Arts Centre. If you go on to Transition MK's website or the Planting Up website, you will see there are work parties there. Go along to the work parties, meet other growers, and then you'll get that confidence that you maybe don't have at the moment. So that would be another suggestion that I could put forward to what is a very good idea, because I know that the tomatoes that I've grown or other people have grown on their windowsills taste completely different to the tomatoes you buy in the supermarket. And that's all the sales talk that I need.
What they do in cardboard and just grow on the bird.
Yeah, the other scheme, which is spread actually throughout the world, called Incredible Edible. And that is turning all bits of waste ground into plots of food, growing salad stuff or whatever that everybody can share. So if you come to Todmorden, you'll find plots of herbs and salad on the railway station. Pick them and put them in your soup when you get to eat later on.
Do we have?
Have you got your dancers yet? We're just filling in for the dancers for you.
Yeah.
So as I was listening to everything, I had an idea. So, thinking about the businesses in MK, and I think Michael said about the challenges of space and practicality. The local companies, there are some with large spaces. They can potentially, even if it's for 1 week a month, donate some of their spaces. It could be upcycling space of the month, and maybe the local community. So if you think about Whelan, so we used to live in Whelan. I know Whelan, and then in Blakelands you've got the Mercedes and VW. They've got tons of spaces potentially, so they could create just a part of a room and say, well, the local community in Blakelands, in Gifford Park, in Whelan, maybe if you want to upcycle anything, advertise it just for 1 week, you could put it there, because you go to the charity shops, they are finite in the space they have. And if we want to sort of upcycle and have a circular economy, and even start with individuals, one of the key challenges is the practicality. And most of the time it's going to end up in the skip. And if we want to avoid that, potentially we need the larger businesses to potentially support us. It's a bit of a pity the mayoress is not here. But, I'm thinking between us, potentially we can reach out to someone who works in VW, Marks and Spencer, some of these larger organizations with big spaces. Amazon, is a good one. They've got warehouses. Just a thought. I don't know what you think.